So I'll remember to send out the notes for this module and the reading and the an evaluation form. So for whatever you've participated in, you can give feedback that will inform the next round, starting after Easter. But finishing off for today, um, so in going through these practices, the special integration practices, the practices of module 14, we've covered quite a few things already. So just to speak briefly about the practice of the prostrations to the 35 Buddhas, or confession to the 35 Buddhas. And there's a commentary, I think it's in the bookshop or in the library, Lama Zopa Rinpoche's commentary on this in terms of what each and every one of those 35 Buddhas purifies, like 40,000 eons of this and 50,000 eons of that and whatever. And the very last one of those, can you get me the gold book? The very last one of those, which is one to the Guru. So we have these list of 35 Buddhas, and the last one we repeat 3 times. There's also a convention of going through and prostration 3 times to each of the Buddhas, or if you read Pabonka Rinpoche, Liberation in the Palm of the Hand, 25 times to each of the Buddhas. Or if you're Lama Tsongkhapa, 100,000 times to each of the Buddhas. I mean, we are in the tradition of Lama Tsongkhapa, so that inspires you. Go for that. In any case, for the Nyondro, this is one of the preliminary practices, classic ones. The requirement for discovering Buddhism is 100,000, not necessarily on the same seat. Normally, when they say on the same seat, you set up your seat, or in this case, if you're prostrating, your mat, and do all the ritual for that and do it on the one spot. But for discovering Buddhism, that is not a requirement. So I can remember doing this 100,000 accumulation in hospital, behind bushes, on pilgrimage. I remember on pilgrimage in this hotel, and there's enough, because I was sharing with another fellow student, and of course we'll pay the cheapest hotel you could possibly find in the place in Mumbai on our way back. And I went into the bathroom and went, no, there's enough space to lie down here to stretch out. Or if you read Sorrow Mountain, this amazing, profound story of this Tibetan woman that was incarcerated for 20 years in Tibet. And she was when she was in isolation, it was completely pitch dark, and she could feel the mud on the floor, but she also checked the dimension and realized she could do her prostration non-dro there while she was in isolation. You don't have to go to such extreme measures. Anyway, so this is a classic practice that we do, and there's also like online commentary from Lama Zopa Rinpoche about the benefits of doing prostrations, even so much as, yes, there's the full prostration, there's half prostrations where we go down on our knees and our hands and our head, and there's also, offering, when we come into the Gompa, offering a jewel to all the holy images and so forth, placing our hands here, we can visualize we're offering to all the statues, tankas, all the images of Buddhas, and to all Buddhas on every atom of space and so forth. So, or this, or even this, or even this. So there's many ways to do your prostrations. Of course, it's wonderful if one can get down there to the floor. Because then and to learn the names by heart, because then it's physically, verbally, mentally So we're engaging body, speech, and mind in purification practice. So some of the benefits: you will achieve rebirth in a wealthy family. You will have wealth and power. It says you'll become a king, let's say a leader in some way, to benefit many sentient beings. That's the purpose in the Dharma of becoming, a leader. And you'll cause so many beings to meet the Dharma. You could teach them the right ways to practice and abandon the wrong ways. Okay. And then the second one, you will achieve an extensive form. In other words, that means you'll have a perfect body with complete sense faculties. In other words, there'll be no impediment for you engaging the Dharma, so there won't be any obstacles to your practice. Taking vows, taking ordination. And so it's, sometimes there's qualms about, it's critical of people with a disability. Not so much, because, these days we can say, well, we have the conditions, we have the technology where even if you're deaf, it's a little bit harder. But even you're in a wheelchair, like my monk friend who happily does his prostrations in his wheelchair and so forth like that, it has not an impediment, right? But because we have technologies that weren't available at the time of the Buddha. And you'll get help and support of the people around you, which makes your ability to be able to benefit others easier and more beneficial. You will be able to make extensive offerings to the Guru, Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. And a few of you were here yesterday where some amazing offerings were being made. Our dear friend Diana doing her beautiful dance and making offerings on the altar. And then the Tibetan dancers came along and offered this most gorgeous kata there in front. And like many, many offerings. And you'll see in the theme of Harmony Week, which ends today, we're sporting orange because that's the colour for Harmony Week. So lots of offerings. You will have extensive devotion, sort of our prostrations. Apart from purification, we can think it's an act of homage. In fact, it is in the 7 limb prayer that we're making that out of devotion to the Guru with faith of conviction, and receive the blessings of the Guru, without whom, of course, we're not going to achieve the realizations of the path to enlightenment. And you'll have a very good memory and a clear mind, particularly if you memorize all the names of the Buddhas. That's a good start, yes. There's audio that will guide you through the practice. I know I don't know those of you who have been to Kopan, but there was an audio of an elderly gentleman. He was 70 years old, and he didn't do the recitations, though the recitations were timed to his prostrations. So if you could keep up with him, 70 years old. Yeah, okay. This was, because I think this one was Venerable Karen. I think this one was. So if you had it with her, it was a 70-year-old prostrating. Very inspiring. If you start young, you can still do it. I mean, Venerable Gyatso, I remember when he was 70 or so, and happily, I don't know now, I think he slowed down a bit, but happily doing long prostrations because he'd been doing them for so long. It doesn't say here you'll build up your muscles, but it is a good workout. That's maybe not a Dharma purpose, but it does keep you strong. You'll achieve extensive wisdom and extensive realizations all the way up to enlightenment. So there, let me just see here. Yes, so that's a list of 10 benefits. So there's a list of 10, there's a list of 8, and there's much commentary and examples here by Lama Zopa Rinpoche. So just by way of inspiration to engage in that practice, and of course our dear friend Dr. Tashi is every Tuesday evening doing his prostration non-dro here, and he's happy for people to join him. That's why it's on the program. If you're able to even, kickstart it. I think I have promised a few times maybe of having a prostration day. Anyone interested in a prostration day? Half day, quarter day, 5 minutes?
5 minutes.
No. Well, 5 minutes only if you know it all off by heart and can do it very quickly. And so it comes in the package of the practice, because we, just like with Vajrasattva, we include the 4 opponent powers. And if the practice that is here or comes as a standalone from FPMT, freely offered, and it has the motivation which, generating a mind of regret. And in the Gold Book, I like that it's got the visualizations of all the Buddhas, the different Buddha families. So it's a beautiful, I won't go through it now, visualization of each one. And then at the end of and then step by step, the practice has then, of course, these multiplying mantras. We know the Om Namo Manjushri one, but there's 2 more. Actually, more recently, Rinpoche's added another one. But then there's all the 35 Buddhas. And you pick your method of being able to, and they're all in the 5 Buddha families. And then we have the medicine Buddhas added on at the end. So you pick your method for learning them off by heart, as Lama Zopa Rinpoche said about the audio that you can prostrate to. Then the audio player gets the merit of reciting it, not you. So on the recitation side. So, but some of them are short. So you hear it and think, oh, I can remember that one, and recite it as many times as you go down and prostrate and so forth. So you pick your method. I don't know if anyone's got any methods to share for remembering, like blowing it up really big and having it pasted up on the wall when you're prostrating, and just look at the next one. I say really big because I've got such bad eyesight. Yes.
I was just wondering, 2 things. I was wondering about the audio player getting merit.
Yeah.
Stuck on that one. So if you record your own voice at a pace at which you...
Well, that would be okay.
Would the audio player still get the merit?
Yes. You'd get the merit of recording your voice.
Of saying it once.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think we are after frequent Dharma points.
I haven't developed my practice with that, but I want to.
Yeah.
And so
I've
printed out, like
yes.
A4, each page. So that's what I intend to
That's
do.
a good start. And then there's nothing like doing it to learn it, And whether you think, oh, I'm going to start from the very beginning, learn those ones, and then the rest I'll follow, as they come along, And then you can break them up into the different family groups, and so that you know which row and the next row and the next row. We've got them over here, but they're not in those rows down.
Image, because I think I found that image, but that didn't help me with the visualization.
No, because it's not in the rows, standard rows. Yes, it has the rows. Yeah, it has them in the rows.
Then in the actual practice where it had each name, I put a coloured sticker next to each one, so I knew which family it was in.
Yeah, because you can put the colour for each family. Yeah. Oh, I like that one. Yeah, very good. There you go.
So then is it recommended as a daily practice?
Yes. So generally, we would do like 3 rounds, however you do it. So you can do 3 rounds by reciting each name 3 times, or you can do 3 rounds by going through 3 times. Either's fine. And, some people, such as myself, prefer that in the morning rather than the evening. But there's many stories like from Tibet, and even people were traveling reps or whatever, and would still, get home at 11 p.m. and do them. I'm sorry, that won't be me. That has not been me in the past. But then, when you're on pilgrimage or whatever, of course, that's the next thing to talk about, pilgrimage, but which is not a requirement. But then if you're doing it in holy places like Bodh Gaya, where people have their prostration board and you get down there and you prostrate. And because everyone else is doing it, you feel the energy of that. Plus the merit is multiplied gazillions of times because it's where the Buddha attained enlightenment.
Just the last question. Would you do that before, if you're doing the refuge non-dro? Would you do the
you could,
before?
Yeah.
Or, I mean,
so in terms of a daily practice, you could start off with the blessing of the speech and those things, and then do your prostrations, and then sit down and do your refuge non-dro. Inspired by his daily practice already. Yeah. And then, so the thing in terms of counting, like for the refuge non-dro, any non-dro, then, keep in your diary the number you did that day, and then next day. So the first day, just do 3, just like with the refuge one, so that the minimum is 3 prostrations to the 35 Buddha, not 3 all 3 times through, but to 3 of 3 individual. Yeah.
Not 3 rounds of the thing.
No, that's not the minimum, because you might find yourself one day at 11 p.m. going, oh gosh, I still got to do it. I can do 3.
Okay.
Maybe more, but yeah. So the whole practice here comes with the 4 opponent powers. There's a confession prayer, and then how to meditate on the confession prayer, which you can get commentary on. Maybe if we have subsequently a day on that, we can do all of that. And then the visualization at the end, where each of the rows dissolves up into the row before, the row before, the row before, the row before, and so forth, and into emptiness, dedication. So once you're familiar with it, even like 3 rounds, you can do that in 15 minutes easily. Not so easily.
I'm slow.
Okay. Well, okay. One can. I've heard people say if they can do that all in 5 minutes, and I'm like, really? 5 minutes, I'm just getting a cup of tea. No, I can't have a cup of tea while you're prostrating. It doesn't work. Okay. So if you want to know more, as I said, there's commentary on lamayeshi.com as well. And maybe we'll have a practice day on this here. Be a good idea. And I mentioned pilgrimage because the one reading there is for this module is about pilgrimage, even though pilgrimage is not a requirement of discovering Buddhism. But clearly Lama Zopa Rinpoche saw that it's very important to do. And pilgrimage meaning going to the holy sites blessed by the Buddha. And the Buddha, this quote from the Buddha that he advised that in times to come, like now, people interested in his teachings should be told about the places associated with the major events of his life, his birth, and passing into parinirvana, his enlightenment, and so forth. So not to ensure that, people continue to pay devotion to him or so forth, but rather for our own benefit, our own welfare. Just as we do with like the refuge non-dro of paying respect and admiration for the qualities of the Buddha. We do it with our meditation. We do it when we say the refuge prayer. Making offerings or undertaking a pilgrimage contributes to our own spiritual practice. And even though traditionally it's going to the holy places of where the Buddha, significant events in the Buddha's life, and we can talk about those briefly. Last year in Bunbury, we did pilgrimage to all the like cathedrals and churches, or not every single one. Some were not included, which was a bit of relief because it was 5 hours of walking. Well, on a very hot morning.
What was started at the beach and then you did the
We paid homage at the beach, yes.
meditation center.
Anglican, then the Catholic, uniting, yeah. Yeah, we passed, yeah. Anyway, so
It was very good.
it was good to do. I prefer to do it at a cooler time of year. I know, it's right up the top, right? And you're going up the hill. But it was wonderful. It was wonderful. Because it had, it was at the time of COP, whatever number it was last year, COP 20, whatever, 7, 8, I don't know. And so it was had an environmental theme. So we said prayers about the environment. And one place I had the display of projects, very inspiring. But in any case, you know, in terms of our Buddhist practice of visiting these holy places of the Buddha. So the Buddha said, monks, after my passing away, if all the sons and daughters of good family and the faithful, so long as they live, go to the 4 holy places, they should go and remember, here at Lumbini, the enlightened one was born. Here at Bodh Gaya, he attained enlightenment. Here at Saranath, he turned 12 wheels of Dharma. And here at Kushinagar, he entered Parinirvana. So he mentions those 4 particular ones, but of course, there are more. And after my passing away, there'll be activities such as circumambulation of these places and prostration to them. So, for example, going to Amravati, where the Buddha taught the coloured chakra, gave the coloured chakra empowerment at the same time as he was at Vulture's Peak teaching the Perfection of Wisdom Sutras. When I had the great fortune to go to Amravati and participate in the coloured chakra by His Holiness Dalai Lama, one coloured chakra of His Holiness. All the prayer flags were sold out. All the plastic cups were sold out because people were there was these bright orange and yellow and green plastic cups around the stupa and for, you know, water offerings, and people prostrating around, and, you know. And as Geshe Samten said to me, to circumambulate the whole teaching ground when His Holiness was there. He said, doesn't matter how big it is. Like, of course, if you go to Bendigo and you can drive around in the car, you can circumambulate around the block here in the car, or, walking or whatever. So, yeah. So Lumbini, Bodh Gaya, Saranath, which is the first turning of the wheel, Rajagriya, the second turning of the wheel, the Perfection of Wisdom Sutras, Shravasti, where the Buddha gave the teachings at Jetavana Cave. So Shravasti is also the spot where the Buddha and his disciples did 25 rains retreats. So 25 years of 3 months, 3 weeks, 3 days, 3 hours, 3 minutes, etc. And I have yet to be there. Anyone been to Saranath? No. But Venerable Kunsang, who was for many years the camera filmmaker for documenting Lama Zopa's teachings until he passed away, then he would say just how you go there and your mind's completely still. The air is just so exquisite, calm, just quite blissful. So yet to go there. Sankashaya, where Lord Buddha descended from Tushita heaven after he went to Tushita heaven. This is one of the Buddha days we celebrate. And the Buddha's descending from Tushita heaven, going back after going and giving teachings to his mother and coming back and continuing to teach in our world. Nalanda, of course, which is the great monastic university, we think the earliest university in the world, because I think I was having a conversation with interfaith friends who's mentioned some other university, and I might have been Hindu. Anyway, they claimed that would be the oldest, could be wrong. Kushinagar, where the Buddha passed into parinirvana. So these are the traditional sites we go to. So when, for example, we have this tradition of consecrating ashes of our loved ones, or if we wanted our own ashes to be consecrated, if not necessarily all of them, but a portion of them, through that consecration, if those ashes have been consecrated, they can be scattered at these holy places, but we can't scatter them unless they've been consecrated. What you can do is put them outside, because I can remember going on pilgrimage one time. It's just like, no, you can't put them inside, but you can put them outside. I don't know if they said outside in the charnel grounds. No, they didn't say that. But you can, and people want to do that. I know at Chenrezig Institute, there's the Garden of Enlightenment with all the stupas where the consecrated ashes are in the stupas there. Same in Bendigo, at the Great Stupa there. They're actually in, some of them in niches, some of them around, the trees and so forth. But they're all being consecrated. So there's a process of doing that. Geshe Dawa, and previous teacher in Sydney, who when he was coming to the end of his life, and of course, like so many lamas, he wanted to go back to Tibet, couldn't get back to Tibet, and then it was like, well, we'll get his ashes back to Tibet. So we had all the consecration and so forth, at least some of his ashes. And what they did was put them in satsars, that's another tradition, and the satsars were taken back to Tibet. Because yeah. So we can get creative in our methods for that. And we could say, like I mentioned, our Camino, Bunbury Camino.
That's what we were called.
That's what, well, they've already planning the next one, actually. So that's what we are calling it. I think we see in all faith traditions, there is that, going to Assisi or Jerusalem or Mecca or so forth. But in our tradition, it's going to at least those 4 holy places. And we see, beings like Arya Nagarjuna, whose teachings we follow, restored the temple in Bodh Gaya and protected the Bodhi tree there, seeing the significance of that, and often visited Bodh Gaya. And many others, like generally we have these Monlam prayer festivals, like Gensondu was part of organising one for Kurdi monastery. I think it was in January, where people, all the traditions go to Bodh Gaya and do days of prayers around the stupa and so forth. And because these are, Lamas calls them power places, these holy places where you can go and very, whatever in your practice is very powerful. For example, for a full ordination to take place, there's normally 4 fully ordained monks. However, at Bodh Gaya, you need 8. So because it's such a powerful place, you need more. And actually, I years ago when I was at Bodh Gaya, and there was one young woman from Adelaide, and she was at Root Institute, our centre there. People been to Bodh Gaya? Been to Bodh Gaya? Been to Root Institute? There was so up on the roof, she was doing her prostration nondro. She was also going to the stupa as well as I was, but you have to get there early to get a prostration board. But anyway, that's okay. You learned, you get there early. And so she was doing her prostration nondro there, and then that becomes a power place for doing that. So many people doing their prostrations there. So after the Buddha's passing, when his body was cremated, passing into parinirvana, the relics were divided into these 8 portions, and at these various places, 8 great stupas were created. So that out of that came this tradition of pilgrimage to the 8 places. So, and then in the 3rd century, wasn't it, the Emperor Ashoka became, like, he went from being anti-Buddhism and, you know, being a warrior king, if you like, to then becoming a devoted follower to the Buddha. And he erected many Buddhist shrines. You know, we have the Ashoka pillars in many places in India. So at the time of the Buddha, Ashoka had offered a handful of dirt to Shakyamuni Buddha and visualized offering. That offering was a barley meal, and aspired to become a Dharma king, which is called a chakra, Dhamma Chakravartin king. And His Holiness Dalai Lama is said to be that living Dharma king. Yeah. So, do we need to say anything more? I've gone to the benefits. Okay, the benefits of going on pilgrimage. This is Lama Zopa. Usually when people go on pilgrimage, visit these holy sites, they're tourists and take a lot of pictures, and they don't use the places to collect merit. So Lama Zopa Rinpoche has compiled together a whole lot of practices to do at the various sites. And if you go on pilgrimage, like some of us have gone on pilgrimage fairly recently with Geshe Zopo, or maybe going and so forth, and we'll do certain practices at the various sites. But there's a booklet of pilgrimage practices that Lama Zopa Rinpoche has put together. And then Rinpoche talks about doing pilgrimage in Tibet in 1987. And, you know, we went to every temple and did prostrations to the 35 Buddhas, making offerings, offering butter lamps, light offerings, using the pilgrimage to purify and collect extensive merit. So there is subsequently, Rinpoche led a pilgrimage for FBMT 2002, I think it was. And there's a film documentation of that, Mystic Tibet. If anybody's seen Mystic Tibet and recognize some of our friends there. So all the Western monks and nuns had to wear lay clothes. Yeah, and you're like, oh, that's Venerable Roger in jeans, very old 70s jeans. Anyway, so yeah, the Nepalis could wear their robes. So you'll see Lama Zopa Rinpoche and some of the others. But when they got to the temples, they did put on their robes, you know. But for traveling around, they had to go like that. Yeah. So, as Lama Zopa says, the main point of pilgrimage is to subdue our mind and not allow the mind to wander under the control of delusions. And I have to say, if you go to some of these places like Pravasti, Paping in Nepal, where you go into Guru Rinpoche's cave, and again, you have this exquisite, cool, refreshing, not a breeze, the air is just undescribably exquisite, is all you can say. And so you sit to meditate and you're not doing anything. You don't need to do anything. Your mind's just there, focused. So unfortunately, you can't stay there very long because there's another group waiting to come in. But we do what we can, because you're just like, wow, that is the power of, that was that cave that I'm thinking of. I think Guru Rinpoche meditated there for 8 years. And so centuries later, you know, the benefit of that. And then the other Nyongdro practice is, not Nyongdro, the other practice for discovering Buddhism, which is a requirement, is the lam-rim retreat of either, well, Kopan style, they say. The Kopan one, which a couple of you have done, is a month long and deep immersion. And I would highly recommend that one because you're right in the zone for that period of time. However, in Australia, we have the great fortune of having 2 lam-rim retreats that qualify, 2 a year, one at Chenrezig Institute in January and one in Datongling on Kangaroo Island, September, October. The dates there change slightly, but just within those couple of weeks, whereas the date in Chenrezig is always the 3rd to the 15th of January. It's like, doesn't matter what day of the week, that's the start of it. So well worthwhile. And on that, just thinking of, and you can do home retreat, like the friend I met at the Lamp of the Path who'd done a whole year lam-rim retreat at his home because he was retired and he lived alone. And so he was able to do that. But we have, like for the year-long retreat or daily reflections, the lam-rim year. So this is a really, really, people delved into the lam-rim year. What do you think?
Fantastic.
I love the way it's set out because it tells you exactly, you don't have to think how many days do I spend on this and how many days on that. It's all laid out for you. And it's got a little quote from Lama Zopa or Lama Yeshe at the top. It's got these 3 paragraphs and then a summary of what each paragraph is about. And then it tells you, right, this is Guru devotion, the benefits of correct devotion to the Guru, and this one in particular, the story of Geshe Chalwa. So it breaks it all down for you. It's such a wonderful daily meditation practice. So it doesn't qualify for the lam-rim retreat, but it is like a stepping stone from, deepening the practice from what we've covered in the Discovering Buddhism round. And really highly recommend that, as I do going to one of the retreats. You want to say anything about how amazing Kopan is? You've done Kopan as well, like it. Yeah. 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 Nat, you were going to say?
No.
It's life-changing, isn't it?
Yeah. I really got into words for how impactful it is. And yes, words are lost and gone.
You're gone, yeah.
Everyone's probably far more articulate than I am. I try my best to stay in silence.
Yes. Yes.
Also, I'm doing very well.
Yeah.
To see some people, I had a friend there, he had severe physical challenges. He could barely walk.
Yeah.
And he got himself up every day. And he went to more of the classes. I think I missed a couple of
years.
But he just
yeah.
Very stick. He lost his stick. He had all these challenges.
Great purification. Not easy with diabetes when you're relying on a Kopan diet.
So many challenges.
Yeah. And just if anybody has health challenges and would really like to do the retreat, I recommend Datongling. No matter what your your dietary challenges are, speaking from experience, they'll accommodate everything, but just everything. Just like, okay, is this one all right for you? Read the ingredients. Yeah, which is really wonderful. Of course, in terms of doing retreat, again, many benefits, as we heard. And the thing about when you do this in a retreat setting, removed from your home, you're there for that. And so to take the full benefit, like being in silence as much as possible and going to everything unless you're ill. And of course, before I went to Copan first time, I never thought about getting ill. But once you've done a few retreats, a dear friend he'd been doing quite a series of retreat, quite a long time at Copan. And he said, you need to take cough medicine, you need to take lozenges, you need to take vitamins, you need to take this and that. And boy, it was the best advice, because actually everyone got sick. Everyone got sick. And we just passed around all our pills and potions onto the next person, the next person, the next person. And these are, and why should you have to take them from here? Because when you're in retreat, you're in retreat. You're not going to be popping down the shop. But also, like I have in the past taken vitamins for Nepalis, and their family members here say, could you take this for my family? Because they're just like, either you can't get them or the quality is not good. So in any case, you need all your supplies. When you're going out of your comfort zone, of course, we want our home comforts. So it takes a commitment of time, doesn't it? I mean, even if you were doing it at home, you need to do at least 2 long sessions a day, morning and evening, basically 3 to 5 hours a day. So it's a big commitment. And at the same time, each day, if you're doing as a home retreat, so you need to set your schedule, have your plan. And when you're going to be in silence. At Copan, it is encouraged, particularly for older students, to be in silence as much as possible. But as with many retreats, at least silence up until after you finish lunch. And I don't know when either of you at Copan had an area of people were in complete silence for dining. No.
But they have to.
Oh no, that was at Root Institute. Sorry, that was at Root. Yeah. Yes, would be helpful, to have the place where those, and you have the badges of being in silence, but then everyone comes up to you and says, how's the silence going? And not missing a session. And of course, separating out, if you're doing it at home, it's much more challenging, because if you're not alone at home, you have to sort of be very particular to separate out the mundane from your regular hours of retreat. So, for example, one of my friends who, in the Blue Mountains, who did, both him and his wife were very long-term Dharma practitioners, but he built under the house a retreat space. And so he would only, like, I think every Friday evening they had dinner together, but apart from that, he was down there, she was up there, and so forth. And everyone, many students in the Blue Mountains were so excited he was doing 3-year retreat. They'd bring meals and leave it at his doorstep. But there is a thing, I was, sort of generally when you're doing retreat, and this happened to me at Chenrezig, I was doing a personal retreat, and people shouldn't come within your retreat boundary. No one should come within your retreat boundary. I had that experience one day when somebody came. I think whether I heard them or not, it doesn't matter, because I wouldn't have answered the door. But it came and left something right on the veranda. And it was just like, oh, it's part of my retreat boundary. And so you get very sensitive to that, the different energies, if you're in that sort of removed enough environment. And then, yeah. So it's much easier to go away and do the retreat, is what I'm going to say. And of course, in any retreat, we need time for exercise as well. Again, both, Kopan as well, Chenrezig and Day Tongling offer quite a big opportunity for exercise, because, you know, by the time, especially at Day Tongling, you get from the, they are building a new gompa that is just close to the dining room. So I don't know, maybe you won't get so much exercise getting to the dining room, but the stoop is quite a distance away. Anyone been to Day Tongling? Yeah. So it is a bit of a distance. So you get that walk multiple times a day, even if you don't do anything else. Yeah. Okay. So encourage you to do that. I should say, regardless of whether, because I don't think anybody is in the category to complete discovering Buddhism at this point in time. But I did want to mention about that. FPMT has this thing of, you know, even you attend all the courses, and then those who do the assessments, and then the practice components and so forth. And very few people ever complete that. But there's no time limit on that. As long as you're still alive, we don't know how long the only time limit is you're still alive. To be able to, it's not like, oh, you have to complete it within a certain amount of time. I'm just saying, not saying therefore don't worry about it. Just saying, if you decide subsequently, oh, actually, I would really like to, you know, revise that. And having said that, you know, well, we will be starting another round of discovering Buddhism. And so basically it's lam-rim, 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 lam-rim. If you haven't worked that out already, it's lam-rim, lam-rim. And I was hearing yesterday about a teacher at another centre who just teaches lam-rim and goes through the lam-rim, starts again, go through the lam-rim, start again. So I've known people to do discovering Buddhism at least 3 rounds and then go on to doing something equivalent to the lam-rim year or 2 years or so forth as a participant. And it only ever deepens. It's not like, oh, well, I've done that. What's next? And I know some people are making the choice about, you know, whether to do another round of DB or to do a round because we haven't done a full round, or to go on to other programs. We do have the Exploring Buddhism, just started another round. The idea of that is it is a deepening understanding, again, lam-rim. And then beyond that, we have, like, obviously basic program and master's program. Not that we have them here yet, but we can work towards that. I think that's all I wanted to say. Any questions, comments about, except to say, for whatever benefit that we've had over this period of time, just think that we've committed ourselves to this Dharma path, and, you know, you are all very committed to the Dharma path, and that's a rare thing in this world, but a very profound thing in this world, and that, you know, that we continue to study and practice. So, as I mentioned, I'll send out, I think there's a regular evaluation form, otherwise I'll send something out, because it would be good to get feedback about, like, the format, the length of time, all of this and that, the structure. Anyone want to say, apart from we'll now go party? We've got to celebrate, you know. Yes, you can say thank you.
Teaching and supporting, answering questions and going down different levels. Great.
Yeah. And the answering questions, I mean, people have my email. Probably got my number as well. I'm happy to answer any questions I can to help you moving forward, even if thinking, well, I don't know whether to do this or to do that, or whatever, or practical practice questions, anything. Or I really want to, as Rob said, I really want to incorporate the prostrations, get started with that. So how do I do that? So yeah, anything.
I want to say the same, like it's been very profound coming and doing teachings, and I'd like to thank you as well. It's like a real, there's so much more I want to go back and study and do. And
yeah.
and there's every module, so it's been a fantastic experience. So thank you very much.
No, it's a wonderful program. It's probably the most brought out of our discovery of our FPMT programs. And it was probably not, I mean, exploring Buddhism subsequently will be, but a lot of attention and care by our elders putting into this, you know.
Probably the most taught program.
It's one of the most taught programs for sure. That one can do any center that you go to. You can do online, you can do a hybrid, you know, online, in person, depending on circumstances and so forth. It's really well put together. Okay. All righty. Let's dedicate and rejoice. Rejoice, rejoice, rejoice in honors, you know, as I said, no matter how many modules or parts of modules or so forth that we have participated in. And I'm sure Venerable can say how beneficial it's been. Because I figured either you've done 3 rounds or you've done quite a lot of.
I think this is the end of my third. So
Third.
I did one
Chenrezig, Bunbury.
Started another one.
Yeah.
There.
And then finished in Bunbury.
And
then this one.
And yeah, I think it's just such a wonderful program because it lays out the whole path to the enlightenment. Yeah. And you get to meet wonderful people, to have great Dharma buddies.
So Lexo, rejoicing. Page 8. Gewadi do Rugyode Ruwachikamaluvam Nisala Rupa Shojancho Sencho Rebo Shema Kepanam Gekuchi Kepanyam Pame Payam Ome Kondu Kawasho. A prayer for the long life of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, incomparably kind and supreme Tenzin Gyatso, the wish-granting, wish-fulfilling jewel, source of every single benefit and happiness in this world. May you have a long life and all your holy wishes be spontaneously fulfilled. And a prayer for the swift return of Lama Zopa Rinpoche, peerless teacher and assembly of the children of the victorious ones, Shravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas, victorious Losang Father and sons, along with the lineage masters, all the objects of refuge of infinite lands. Please bestow the virtue and goodness of accomplishing this prayer here and now, holding and spreading the Muni's precious and complete teachings through explanation and practice. You wore the armor of patience, never discouraged. Incomparable Venerable Guru, to you I make request, while striving single-pointedly for the sake of the victorious one's teachings, the sole gateway through which all benefit and happiness emerge, and from Mother Living Beings, you suddenly departed to peace. What a great loss! Nevertheless, through the undeceiving truth of the blessings of the ocean of the 3 jewels and the great waves of bodhicitta of the children of the victorious ones, may the smile of a reincarnation swiftly beam in glory for fortunate disciples. I should have mentioned too, so I know that for some people that, or for most people coming here, the weekends, the available time. So is there anyone thinking of doing, maybe we can talk out the back, but exploring Buddhism, but wouldn't be able to come on a Friday morning? Because we're toying with the idea of doing that on a Saturday, possibly morning or afternoon. Morning, afternoon.
You define morning and afternoon.
Okay. Happy for it to be defined for me.
And what would suit you?
What's the ideal time? Please.
Well, if I had a dream time.